Thank you very much for having me. I'm Tim Schwanen. I'm Professor of Transport Geography at the University of Oxford, and I lead the interdisciplinary institute at the university that focuses on questions of transport and transport policy. So a lot of what we do on a daily basis are the kinds of questions that you're grappling with here. And in my talk today, I want to make 3 points about needs, about intervention, and about scale. And the word need has come up a lot already this morning and features prominently in the questions that have been sort of set for this whole exercise. Now, we talk a lot about needs in relation to transport and mobility, and it's a term that we use very easily, but it's actually very, very difficult to define and identify what a need is. And many of the things we think of as a need are more like wants. So when people say, I need my car to get to X, Y, and Z, in quite a few instances, it is not that hard a need, it is much more. This is what I would like to do, this is what I've become used to do. Also important is that the fulfillment of needs by some people, by certain groups, have implications for what others are doing. So we can't simply think about individual needs, we need to think about how they are linked and what the implications are of what we do. And that means that priorities and trade-offs are inevitable. Now, there are many different ways in which we can think about needs, and there's lots of great books and theories about needs. I think one way of thinking about needs is to think about capabilities, about what we really need to do. And there is a philosopher called Martin Nussbaum who's written about the minimum things that a government or a political system or a city needs to offer to its citizens so that they can do what they would like to do, that they can lead a decent life. She's got a list of 10 what she calls central capabilities that I've put here on the slide. I don't have time to go through all of them in detail, but the ones that are highlighted in dark are the ones that have a link to transport. You can get the slides afterwards to look at them in more detail, but the point I want to make is that the type of mobility system, the type of transport system that we have in the city has implications for the extent to which we can guarantee that everyone has sort of these basic needs, these basic capabilities fulfilled. And the transport system that is dominated by cars, by big cars, by lorries and by vans makes guaranteeing those basic capabilities for everyone in the city most difficult. In fact, a transport system where that is dominated by walking makes it easier and entails that the risk of these basic capabilities being guaranteed for everyone being violated the least likely. So this is in some ways the best way forward from a needs point of view. And this is particularly so because cars have changed over time. This is a graph I took from Twitter. There are many different ones, very similar ones to this one, but it shows very powerfully how cars have changed. So you see a Volkswagen Golf in 1980 was about 1.60 meters wide. Nowadays, it is 42 centimeters wider than it was 42 years ago. The other thing is that we don't only drive Golfs. The types of car that car industry sells us have grown, and we see many more of these SUVs, which take up a lot of space and marginalize other people on our roads, make it much more difficult for other people to have their basic capabilities, their basic needs fulfilled. So, I am not saying at all that we should ban cars in general, or I'm not against cars as such, but I think it is reasonable to say that we should only be using cars when there is no plausible alternative. And when we use cars, we should push for smaller, lighter, and clean vehicles. And that holds for cars, but very much also for vans and trucks. because a lot of the problems that we see in this city are actually caused by freight transport. And I was very grateful that you mentioned this about the deliveries, because it's a real issue that I think you should be looking in very carefully. In terms of making interventions in our transport system, you will hear many politicians and policymakers say that we need to focus on enhancing choice, on providing alternatives. That sounds really lovely, but it's not enough. Real change requires hard interventions. It requires banning certain types of transport in certain places in the city. It requires making people pay for the use of certain types of transport. But those sticks cannot be implemented only. They need to be complemented by what we call carrots. They need to be complemented by supplementary measures. So if you decide to go for LTNs, low traffic neighbourhoods, make sure that you improve your infrastructure for cycling, for walking, that you give people the ability to learn to try out different forms of transport, as you were saying. And you have to design these packages in a participatory manner with the community, not from the top down, from the city level. I'm going to skip this last point, but what I really want you to take away from this, that I think it's important not to talk about needs at face values. Many mobility needs are desires, they're wants. And if we're thinking about needs fulfillment, we need to think about what the implications are of the fulfillment of your needs for what you can do. I think that is key to your process. Bans and levies, however painful and unpopular they are, have to be part of the picture, but they have to be complemented by other enabling interventions. Thank you very much.